Hello guys, welcome back to our channel Mystery Recaps. Today, I will demonstrate the 2016 post-apocalyptic zombie film, The Girl with All the Gifts. There are spoilers ahead, watch out and be cautious. Melanie is in bed as the lights in her cell illuminate. Come on now, she awakens and begins getting ready for school. Two soldiers enter and she enthusiastically greets them. However, their only concern is securing her to the wheelchair. They will lead her out into the hallway and line her up with other children her age. Melanie and the others are assigned numbered seats in a classroom. Melanie requests and proposes that Miss Justino tell them a story. She reads them a myth in order for it to qualify as history. The instructor reluctantly agrees to read them the myth of Pandora's box. Melanie is returned to her cell after class, where two unfriendly soldiers refuse to greet her. Good night. Later, she's given dinner. The serving consists entirely of worms. She falls asleep during her meal. The next day, Dr. Caldwell pays Melanie a visit. The young lady has solved the puzzle. The doctor prescribed her. Therefore, she hands her a new one and explains that it is a logic problem. Melanie is asked to solve the problem of Schrodinger's cat when she cannot respond. The doctor records something about her behavior and reads it back to her, referring to her as a subject. Finally, the doctor requests a number from Melanie, who responds with 13. Later, when the soldiers collect her and the other children for school, Melanie observes that cell number 13 has not been opened as she is wheeled past the numbered cells. When she enters the classroom, the same numbered seat is still vacant. The children are concerned that they will not know what story to tell when the teacher assigns them a writing assignment for that particular class. Only Melanie is writing a longer one in her notebook. So when the teacher asks for someone to read aloud their work, she raises her hand immediately. In her writing, she portrays herself as the savior and the hero. The instructor is overcome by Melanie's story and reaches out to touch her. Sergeant Parks rushed into the classroom and yelled that touching the children was prohibited. He wishes to remind Justino of the reasons why this is the case. Therefore, he approaches one of the children, rolls up his sleeve, and brings his arm close to it. The infant sniffs him with its jaw open and ready to bite. The other children mimic his actions. Sergeant Parks enters Melanie's cell as the others prepare to remove her restraints following the class. The girl irritates him, so he restrains her to the chair. The same evening, Justino visits Melanie. When she realizes she has been left in this condition, she enters her cell and begins removing her restraints. The girl begins to transform like the other children after catching a whiff of the teacher's scent. Before Melanie fully turns, she tells the teacher to leave. Later that evening, Dr. Caldwell returns to her residence. They converse, and she requests the girl's phone number. Melanie responds with the number 4, which corresponds to her own cell number. The next morning, Sergeant Parks arrives to pick up Melanie. He assists her in exiting the cell and entering a lift. As he rolls her out of the facility, gunshots can be heard. Soldiers are observed running and firing towards the complex's perimeter fence. Melanie is perplexed by the sight as Parks wheels her to a different section of the complex and into a laboratory where Dr. Caldwell is waiting. When Melanie does not answer her question about Schrodinger's cat, she explains that the cat in the box is both alive and dead, just like Melanie. A second physician injects a sedative into her arm, knocking her out instantly. They place her on a slab and restrain her, but she awakens quickly. Justino dashes inside to prevent the doctor from dissecting Melanie. After a few more assurances, she convinces the teacher to drop her weapon and then pepper sprays her, immobilizing her so that the soldiers can arrest her. She explains that she is not simply dissecting Melanie, but rather using her as a vaccine source. As Justino is taken away, alarms begin to sound. Caldwell instructs the other doctor to lower the shutters, but as she does so, a zombie breaks through the window and viciously bites her. Caldwell kills the zombies by cutting off her own hand. The other doctor begins to completely transform, but she manages to escape the lab just in time. Melanie is left alone in the laboratory with the zombie, which does not approach her. The girl seizes a scalpel and uses it to free herself from her restraints. Melanie walks outside to find a zombie horde attacking soldiers as they attempt to shoot them, causing complete chaos. Suddenly, she observes the soldiers assaulting Justino. Infuriated, she charges at them, attacks and bites them, and ultimately kills them, both before collapsing. Justino awakens next to Melanie, picks her up, and places her in a military vehicle. The complex is overrun by zombies as the vehicle is seen leaving, followed by a herd. Eventually, the vehicle stops in the middle of nowhere. Melanie runs a short distance away from the vehicle and stops, seeing the exterior for the first time clearly. Parks, Karen, and Caldwell search the vehicle for food and water, but find only a mask used to capture zombies. The sergeant devises a plan to travel south to Beacon, assuming that everyone at the complex except for the zombie children is dead. They strap Melanie to the gunner seat of the vehicle, mask her, and drive to a river to obtain water. They refuse when they arrive. Zombies discover them, leading to a gunfight with the soldiers. One of the soldiers is bitten during the battle, so Parks waits to see if he will turn himself in when the process begins. He shoots him before closing the vehicle's doors. When he realizes that Justino has brought Melanie with him, he becomes extremely anxious. Caldwell explains to the girl that the zombies were people infected with a fungus transmitted through biting. When Parks attempts to start the vehicle, he realizes that it is broken and that they will have to traverse London more quickly on foot. But more dangerous route. Parks and Karen examine the perimeter that they must traverse. It is overrun with zombies. They inform the others that the only option is to pass through the zombies and seek shelter and supplies within the city. The group moves through a horde of sleeping zombies. Be cautious not to awaken them. The park abruptly stops when they reach a dead end. Caldwell approaches a zombie mother pushing a baby carriage towards them and forces her to stop. She detects movement of the infant in the cart and checks it, only to discover a rat inside. She screams, awakening first the zombie mother and then the others. The group manages to escape and makes its way through the zombie-infested streets of the city before entering an abandoned hospital. Parks discovers an opening to a higher floor, and everyone ascends to a much safer location. Parks, Justino, and Karen immediately go on patrol, while Caldwell and Melanie are left behind and remain behind. The girl inquires where she is from. The doctor explains that she and others like her were discovered in a hospital's maternity ward. They were the offspring of mothers who were infected with the fungus during pregnancy. Therefore, the infection entered their system via the placenta. Caldwell informs her that they were distinct from the other zombies in that they could almost think and act like humans. Later, Park and Justino discuss Melanie, and Park tells Justino that Melanie loves him. In the meantime, Karen is guarding the girl, and she also forms a bond with him. The following morning, they observe that more zombies have gathered outside the hospital. They are unable to escape. However, Melanie comes up with a plan. Because the zombies will not attack her, she persuades them to allow her to leave the building and find a way to expel the zombies. Caldwell dislikes the plan, but in the absence of an alternative, the others concur. She goes outside and effortlessly avoids the zombies. Suddenly, she observes a cat being hunted and devours it raw. Later, she enters a house and discovers a small dog. When she returns, she uses it as a distraction to lure the zombies away from the hospital. Parks reapplies the mask and handcuffs, and they continue their journey to Beacon through the abandoned city. On their way, they notice something peculiar: fungus growing from the zombies' bodies. The doctor believes that this is the next stage in the fungus life cycle. She then informs Melanie that in her case, the fungus functions more as a symbiotic than a parasitic. Caldwell hypothesizes that the absence of zombies is due to the presence of a massive fungus that has engulfed a large number of corpses. When enough of them assemble, they develop into the mature stage of the fungus, which is capable of pollinating larger regions, if not the entire planet. Suddenly, they encounter a mobile laboratory while traveling. They enter the vehicle and begin searching through it. Park checks the engine before the radio. No response. Melanie is becoming anxious as Karen leaves for a supply run, like she's about to turn. She tells them that she needs to eat too, and they let her out to hunt. She finds her food fast and tears right through it. When she's done eating, she hears a strange sound and follows it to a bookstore. She keeps trough and sees a group of children communicating with grunts. Melanie understands that they are just like her when suddenly one of them comes inside and tells the others that he has smelled something. They all follow him out, back at the mobile lab. Caldwell is getting sicker and informs Justino that she has sepsis. Then she starts talking about Melanie again and how she needs her brain and spine to make the vaccine, much to Justino's displeasure. Suddenly, Melanie returns and tells them about the children she saw, convinced that they will hunt for Karen. He's seen walking down a street and suddenly finding an unopened can on the ground, and then another one until he sees a store and crawls under the shutter to get in. Once inside, he starts eating and looking through dirty magazines. A little girl appears behind him, startling him. She lures in between the rafters of the store, and momentarily more children appear when their leader joins them. They all attack Karen together. Meanwhile, Melanie is leading Parks and Justino to him. She can smell him like the other kids did. They finally arrive at the store, go inside, and find Karen. Half-eaten, Melanie realizes that the children didn't just set a trap for him, but for them as well. They go outside and see that she was right. The group of kids is waiting for them. Melanie challenges the leader and fights with him when she kills him to prove to the others that she is the strongest. She's able to protect Parks and Justino and lead them back to safety. They arrive at the lab to see that the door is open. When they walk inside, Caldwell sedated them with some kind of gas. She pulls Melanie towards the slab to perform her procedure, but stops because she's in terrible pain from her hand. She turns around for a moment to fix it, but when she turns back around, Melanie is already conscious and alert. They talk, and she tries to convince the girl to give herself up so that she can save everyone with her vaccine. Melanie almost agrees, but asks one last question. She wants to know if the doctor thinks she's alive, or just mimicking human behavior. Caldwell answers with the former. Then the girl says, "Why should we die to save you?" Melanie runs out, leaving the doctor in the lab, but she follows her, lagging behind Melanie with no gun or protection. Caldwell is immediately surrounded by the zombie children. Meanwhile, the girl goes to the huge fungus they found before she sets it on fire with the intention to activate the spores. Unfortunately, Parks had followed her too, and he gets infected. Melanie didn't plan for that to happen. As he starts turning, he asks her to shoot him before he becomes one of them. Later, Justino wakes up in the lab, protected from the spores, realizing what has happened with Melanie, waiting for her outside the lab. In the final moments of the film, Justino is woken up by Melanie sometime. Has clearly passed. She takes out a whiteboard with her and starts a class with the zombie children, listening to her from the other side of the lab window. Melanie is their leader now, and they all attend this. Justino is lessons together. Be sure to subscribe and enable notifications so you can view similar videos. Thank you for viewing.